in Egypt in November of 2012, so not very long ago. We only really had a couple of full cycles of recruitment, but we have seen very good growth. If you don't know, actually our regional headquarters for the Middle East used to be based out of Cairo even before we had student placement operations out of there. That regional head office is now here in Dubai where I'm based. But while it was there, we had started the student placement operation. So we actually do have 2 offices now in Egypt, one in Cairo and one in Alexandria, which is just a little over a year old. And out of both of those offices, we also have 2 IDP IELTS test centers where we also deliver the IELTS and IELTS UKVI tests. In terms of the counseling and the student placement staff that we have, for those of you who visited the picture there, especially if you visited the Cairo office, the picture there will look quite familiar to you. So we have Tamer, who heads the team, the counseling teams in both Cairo and Alexandria. He comes with some good experience in education. He's worked for Kaplan in Canada as well, and then relocated to Egypt. And we're very happy to have him on board leading our Egypt teams. And we do have very experienced counselors. We have, as you can see in the picture there, but in Cairo we have 3, so Ahmed, Dina, and Esra, Miriam to support them, and then Nancy is based in Alex at the moment in Alexandria. Hopefully that team will be expanding soon as well. The person who sort of overlooks Egypt as a whole is Sabri. He's also responsible for Saudi Arabia and Jordan now as well. He is based in Riyadh, but originally from Egypt. So he will have an oversee over the operations. But your main point of contact for anything related to office visits, marketing activities, will for any of the offices.
To unmute your line, press *6 or #6.
So just to the next couple of slides, I want to go through an overview of the market, what's been happening in Egypt, both from an overall economic perspective, but also from an educational perspective, and from a specific IDP perspective. So what we've been seeing by the numbers. So Egypt overall, when you look at the GDP numbers over the last 10 years, has completely exploded, a 266% increase in the last 10 years. And that's not obviously just education, that's everything that's been going on as well. They have had a lot of foreign investment, especially prior to the Arab Spring. The large population itself, which is quite an urban population, but quite a young population there, as you can see. So 91 million with 52% under the age of 25. So again, a key demographic for us, and there's been an increase. But you can't really overstate how quickly that economy has been growing over the last 10 years, and it's actually predicted to be in the top 20 economies in the world within the next 15 years or so. So I think it's an opportunity that we all have started to look at definitely, and we have to continue to look at in spite of a couple of very recent challenges that have come up. If you look specifically at the education sector and the UK education sector directly, we've actually seen over the last couple of years a 43% increase in first-year entries to the UK, and this is according to HISA. And almost 100% increase when you look specifically at undergraduate. So that's really where the growth has been, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, but there's a lot of good international schools now in Egypt, Cairo, Alex, and other places, and there are lots of families that have the money and they can afford to send their students abroad. So we're seeing a huge increase in the undergraduate sector. That being said, as we'll touch on a little bit later, there is a significant postgraduate market as well. So that sort of segues into this next slide. And again, these are stats taken from HISA. So as we can clearly see, the undergraduate market, as we said, almost close to double. But at the same time, your postgraduate market, both taught and research, is actually higher than the total undergraduate students available. And that's a segment that we definitely as agents haven't really tapped into yet. I think our competitors don't really tap into it. As IDP, we don't really tap into it, and that's going to be a focus for us going forward. And it's probably an area where we could learn from some of you who are our clients who are getting these students. How do we actually tap into it? So we'll probably get in touch with you, Tamer, myself, on ways that we can engage to really tap into the postgraduate market. We have some ideas where we could work together, and I'll cover that as well. Overall, Egypt has been growing, so 20% from 13-14 to 14-15, another 20% approximately in the following year. And we as IDP have also been growing. We're very proud of the growth that we've had in Egypt. We're probably one of the top agents at the moment. And we've really experienced staggering growth and been able to grow our market share. Now, when you look at market share numbers like 4%, 5%, and 8%, that might not be, it might not seem huge, but when we compare it to the agent business overall to some of our other regions across the world, anywhere getting close to about 10% is actually very difficult to achieve, and we're very proud that we've achieved that in such a short amount of time. And that really is a testament to obviously all of you who've engaged with our offices over time, as well as the efforts from our teams in Cairo and Alexandria. Again, when you break down the market characteristics and look at what kind of subjects are of interest, again, this is from HISA data. So you look at where are the undergraduate opportunities, where are the PGT and PGR. Obviously, you see the common ones like engineering, business, management, and so on, and that's across undergraduate, PGT, PGR. But something that really stood out for me for undergraduate was I was very surprised that architecture actually was the #1 undergraduate subject from Egypt. That was something that I didn't really know till we pull these stats out. And for us, that's an opportunity. That may be an opportunity for you in how you sell your programs. Those of you that do offer an architecture program at undergraduate level, how will you, can you push that in Egypt as a market? Because there's clearly a need for it, and the stats are showing that. Also, just as we mentioned a little bit earlier, is there that opportunity in the PG space? We focus so much on UG because we know where the students are. We know which are the schools to target. We go in there and we try to get those particular students, but everybody's fighting over the same piece of the pie, which is actually 50% of the market. How can we go and target the students at that PGT and PGR level? And there are a couple of things that we could do together. As we said, for IDP specifically, for us, it's been about 85% undergraduate. So it's only been about 15% postgraduate, mainly undergraduate. And out of those students that are undergraduate, the majority have been foundation. And that's basically a characteristic of the market. The school system in Egypt is really set up to feed into the universities in Egypt. So ones like the American University of Cairo, for example. Now, the American University of Cairo obviously follows an American system, so we have a lot of American diploma-type schools in Egypt feeding into that university. So they do the diploma, they may do the SAT-1, but they don't do anything else after that. Even a lot of the British schools, they stop at IGCSE level. They may go on to AS and just complete their AS. Some of them do 1 or 2 A-levels. We're seeing an increase now in the British schools completing A-levels, so I think there will be a trend towards getting more direct undergraduates as well, but at the moment, as it stands, because of the Thanawiya schools, the diploma schools, and the British system schools that end a little bit early, it is a big foundation market. Another characteristic of these schools is a lot of them tend to offer 2 or even 3 of the systems altogether. So they'll usually be different divisions within the same school. So there'll be a local Thanawiya system, and they'll offer the American diploma, or they'll offer all 3 within the same school. So there have definitely been some challenges that have come up over the last couple of months. The first challenge that really came up probably around July, August of last year was there was a severe shortage of foreign currency. So students weren't really able to make one-time deposit payments or even full tuition fee payments, and that really became a major issue. We faced it firsthand. We'd have students coming in with multiple credit cards. They'd come in with friends and family, and then they would come in with multiple credit cards trying to make even just a deposit payment. And I think at one point, a lot of the banks had put a cap of about $150 or $200 on a single credit card transaction. And the reason for this is there was a shortage of foreign currency in Egypt. The main reason for that, obviously tourism has been hit in Egypt since the Arab Spring. The tourists who were bringing in your dollars and your pounds and your euros disappeared. And so there was a severe shortage. At the same time, with the growth that Egypt was experiencing, there was a lot of investment to fund that growth, and a lot of that investment was from foreign governments. So they had a lot of debt that they had to repay in foreign currency. So again, leading to that currency shortage. So what did they do? They devalued their currency in about November of last year. And it was quite a severe devaluation. So if I look at the pound rate and I compare it to the pound rate pre-Brexit, so obviously we know the pound has dropped after the Brexit vote came out. But even prior to that, at the rate that it was before the pound dropped, it was a very healthy number of students wanting to go to the UK. So currency or money wasn't really an issue. So I've compared things to pre-Brexit, and it has been about an 80% devaluation when you look at the pre-Brexit rate at the highest. If things are improving at the currency level a little bit, and it's down to about a 50% increase since the devaluation happened. So the currency is starting to stabilize a little bit, but it's still definitely a very big challenge that we're facing. Students, as you can imagine, they're thinking twice now about wanting to, say, spend that money to go study abroad. They're looking at other destinations, interestingly. So we've had a lot of interest in students coming in asking about Australia, Canada, and Europe because of post-study work opportunities. So the sentiment is, if I'm going to spend more money than I was previously, will I go somewhere where I can have that immigration opportunity as well? And the other perception is that the UK is expensive, and I think that actually turns into an opportunity for us, as I'll explain in the next slide, because if you actually compare the different currencies, because of the fall in the value of the pound after the Brexit vote, the pound relative to the other destinations, or the UK relative to the other destinations after the devaluation, is actually much cheaper. So year on date, the pound is 50%, it costs 50% more Egyptian pounds compared to one British pound, versus an appreciation in the Egyptian pound of almost 83% for dollars, so US dollars, 85 for Aussie dollars, 80 for Canadian, and 67% for euro. So I think that's a selling point that we are definitely pushing across to our teams to get across to students. But I think that's something that you as universities need to put in, again, into your training materials for counselors when you're going and training Egyptian staff, but also in your materials when you're going out, maybe doing school visits, attending fairs. That is a point you have to push, because the UK at the moment is considered too expensive to go to. But if you look at everything prior to devaluation, it's actually cheaper now to go to the UK than it was prior to the devaluation when you put it in comparison with some of the other countries. The reason, this is sort of speculation, but the reason that I think they consider the UK more expensive is obviously, say, one Egyptian or one British pound equals about 20 Egyptian pounds at the moment, versus one Egyptian pound equaling, or one US dollar equaling about 15 or 16 US dollars. But we saw, all of us have seen, as agents, we've seen it. I'm sure as universities, you've seen an increase in the number of applicants and the number of finalized students over the last year when, the same currency exchange held. It's just that it's much cheaper now to go to the UK than it was previously. And I think we really need to get this point across. We are doing our best. We're obviously developing communication, documentation, trying to leverage social media to get this point across. But I think it's very important as universities and institutions, when you're speaking to students and when you're speaking to our counselors, to again push this, because the UK is still relatively cheaper than other destinations. I think we definitely need to raise awareness on the cost benefits of the UK. So again, one of the big issues that I faced, even when talking to our counselors sometimes, is a student comes in and says, oh, the tuition fee is too expensive in the UK. But they're not looking at the range of tuition fees. They're not looking at what scholarships. Almost all of you offer some sort of a scholarship opportunity, especially for high achieving students. Cost of living, that's one of the most overlooked expenses, I think, when training from institutions, but also when we counsel students. So that's something we have definitely been pushing now with teams in Egypt and across the other regions as well. As look at the cost of living in cities around the UK, because that is a big factor in how much it's going to cost, or your cost of education, and also your money that you can earn from part-time work. As we know, students can work 20 hours per week part-time during term time, and even if you just factor in the minimum wage that they could earn, that's still close to around £4,000 a year, for example. So when you add everything together, I'll give you an example. We had a a counselor from Alexandria down in Dubai for some training, and she came up to me and said, oh, there's a student who came into the office, brilliant, 3 A stars, but the budget to go study was around £13,000. And his other option was just to go to a local university in Alexandria. So we actually went through some of the universities that, their tuition fees, we shortlisted a couple of them where the fees were a little bit lower and were pretty well ranked for the subject that he wanted to study. We looked at what scholarships those universities are offering, £1,500, £2,000, £2,500, factored in the cost of living in that particular city and the money that that student could earn from working part-time. And it actually worked out that the student had a budget of about $13,500, and the total cost of education was working out close to about $12,500 to $13,000. So we could find an opportunity for that particular student. But very often, again, from a training perspective, it revolves generally around your tuition fees, and then, okay, this is our average cost of living. But I think if we were able to, when you do go into our Egypt offices, for example, emphasize the fact that you add all of these together, use a case study, use an example in your training to really target and emphasize the point that there are affordable options available for students in the UK. I think that would really help our counselors. And so that's something that we need your assistance from when you're engaging with us. As we said, post-study work is definitely something that's biting into our UK business. So a lot of students are coming in saying, okay, I'll apply to the UK, but I also want to look at Germany. I want to look at Australia. I want to look at Canada. I think, again, we have some great opportunities with with work placement programs that many of your universities and institutions offer. So I think that's something that we need to push. I think we need to push the fact, the types of ties to industry, the company names, case studies. If you have Egyptian students, it could be students who've been domiciled in Egypt. They could be domiciled anywhere else in the Middle East, anywhere else in the world, but they have of Egyptian origin. That really helps if we have those live case studies, videos, testimonials, flyers, things on social media that we can also promote on our Facebook pages, our Twitter pages, Instagram, and so on. I think that will really help to offset the challenge that we are definitely seeing in terms of students wanting to go to Australia because they think it's a lot easier to stay back there. The fact is, jobs are tough to get, even if there is post-study work. Jobs are tough to get in places like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and other places that are more immigration-friendly. So I think if we highlight the opportunities available in UK, that's a clear-cut opportunity for us. We talked about tapping into the PG market, and I will touch upon that in the next couple of slides. But I also think in times like this where we may face, I think this year will be difficult for Egypt. I think we're seeing it, there's nothing to hide. I think we're seeing it in our applicant numbers. We're down slightly. But I think we're still very aggressive in the market. We're continuing to engage. Even if a student comes in and we're working with a school, and that school, the majority of the students are saying, okay, I'm looking at Germany as a destination. As IDP, we don't service Germany. That does not mean that we are not continuing to engage with that school, because as we saw over the last 10 years, Egypt has grown exponentially, and it's projected to grow exponentially. Even with the devaluation and the currency issues at the moment, the World Bank still says in the next 15 years it's going to grow exponentially. So I think those that stop engaging in this particular market are the ones that are going to lose out in the long term. We have to have a long-term view of Egypt. There's some great students there, great quality students there, and there's some good money there. There's some families that definitely have the means to invest. There are students there even at the postgraduate level who have those means to invest. So what can we as IDP and you as our partner institutions do together? Obviously, we've talked about the joint school engagement, and this is something that really works in Egypt. There are over 100 international schools in Egypt, so it is a big market, the majority of them being in Cairo. There are two main areas really in Cairo, or the greater Cairo region, which have those schools. So many of you would have possibly, who've been on our previous roadshows and done school visits, would have visited a lot of the schools in the picture on the right, which is in an area called New Cairo, or the Fifth Settlement. So a lot of international schools there. You have one of the Shoifat schools. You have British system schools, American diploma schools. There's another section of schools all the way on the other side of the Nile, closer to the pyramids in 6th of October. I think the challenge in Egypt, as many of you who would have already visited, is obviously traffic can be a nightmare and can take, actually, if you were to travel from New Cairo to 6th of October, it could be a 3-hour journey. So it's something that you have to plan well in advance. I think if you engage with our offices there, engage with Tamer and say, okay, we're going to dedicate 2 or 3 days to your Egypt office. What can we do with schools? I think particularly on the time of the year, if you're planning something early in the cycle, September to December or Jan, Feb, ideally, we're more than happy to help you try to set up some school visits because it really helps us. If we go in together, it could be presentation formats, it could be one-to-ones, it could even be just a meeting with the counselor to introduce the university, get them trained on the USPs for your particular institution. Career days, school fairs, we've helped universities, we've taken universities in for career days that the school themselves was hosting. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that we could work on together. I think you just need to keep us informed of what you want to do, and we're happy to work with you on that. Another thing that's worked well in the past is school counselor fam trips as well. So we're happy to sort of be the middleman for that. So if you're planning any sort of a school counselor fam trip, global school counselor fam trip, we have the contacts. Engage with us and let us be the ones that sort of help you set that up as well. It'll help you, it'll help us in the long run as well. In-office sessions, so these are pretty common. You would have done these in many of our offices, including in Egypt. So we do have a presentation area in our Cairo office. It can probably hold about 15 students or so, maybe a little bit less. But it's a good area if you just want to get a small group together, do a presentation, possibly on the university, but also possibly on a subject area, maybe a session, and we are planning this in-house, cost of education. So how do you budget for your UK education, talking about some of those factors like scholarships, part-time work, and so on, cost of living. Career choices is another important thing that we've seen a lot of undergraduate students have a lot of interest in. So this would be students with a more long-term view. So you're looking at your students who might be looking to go, say, 2 or 3 years down the line. So what kind of subjects do you want to study to eventually get into a particular degree? Could be things like application assistance. Many of you may have participated in mini fairs that we've done in our office. So we're looking to do a lot more of that. Primarily, we've held these in Dubai. So yeah, many of you have already done some of the ones in Dubai. These are generally free events in our office. We're not going to charge you for it. The wording there might be a bit misleading, but the paid marketing is actually from IDP. So if we organize a mini fair, we have about 4 or 5 universities in the office. It incentivizes us to put some paid marketing out there, promote it on social media, send out email campaigns, send it out to schools, and hopefully get students coming in. So it's worked very well for us here in Dubai. We've done one, I think, in Abu Dhabi. We've done a couple in Saudi, in Oman. I think we've done one in Cairo. But what we need from you is you need to let us know well in advance that you're going to be in the region on these dates. So if we know from a group of you that, either as a group or let us know individually, and then we can plan a mini fair around those particular dates. It really helps. As we said, we're happy to put some of our budget towards marketing it, and it'll help us recruit students for you. And I think, again, very targeted training with the counselors can't be overlooked. The training on the kinds of programs you offer is great, but a lot of that stuff can also be found on the university website, for example. So highlighting key courses, key areas of strength, like your specific rankings, course-specific rankings, student survey results, things like that, which really help the counselor sell the program, excellent. When we're done looking at a market like Egypt, I think a lot of emphasis now needs to be put on costs. So how can we break down the costs into the different factors, and where can a student save money? So how would you sell that to a particular student so that our counselors can also learn that particular concept? And also work placement opportunities. So really, where are the students getting work placement opportunities? Can you show us any case studies? Because that sticks in the mind of the counselor when they're speaking to a particular student about your institution. We do our roadshows twice a year. So Cairo has always been a part of that since they've opened their operations. Obviously, our focus on Cairo has been on trying to increase the quality of students that we get into the event. When we first started it, we probably had about close to 1,000 people attending the event, but the quality was not very good, and we had only about 8 universities. So it'll be completely frank and say it wasn't a great event for us. It wasn't a great event for our university partners. So consistently, we've been trying to get that number down. We don't want to see 1,000 people. I mean, we'd like to see 1,000 good quality ones, but we'd much prefer to see 300 to 500 good quality attendees by doing a lot more targeted marketing. And I think we have been doing that. We've seen our participation grow in terms of the numbers of universities. So as I said, when we first did it, we had 8 institutions from all 5 of our destinations. Now we're close to about 25 or 26 institutions. So the popularity has grown, definitely, and we hope that will continue to grow. We've had positive feedback from institutions that have participated, saying that they will want to participate again. And none of the institutions that have actually answered our survey has said that they won't participate again. So that's a positive sign, and we hope that you do continue to engage with us in that format, because it does help us generate a lot of leads, generate applications as well, and especially at times like this where we need to continue to engage with the market, it's really going to help us and help you. There is a link there to a Facebook video, or a video that we created on the roadshow, including some content from students and some of the institutions that have participated in the past, as well as just snapshots of the event itself. So for those of you who may not have participated in any of our roadshows before, that would be quite useful to see. So when you get the recording a little bit later on, feel free to just click the link and have a look at that video on Facebook. We talked about trying to tap into the PG market as well, and so this is an area of focus for us, definitely. Every agent sort of fights over the same undergraduate market, as I mentioned, and the PG market is sort of left alone, and there are reasons for that. It's because it's very difficult to find the right PG candidates. You need to go through 100 candidates, and you might get 10 if you're just mass marketing. While if you go into the right school and get 60 students, you might convert 30 of them. So obviously, it's a lot less of an effort to recruit PG students. Or to recruit UG students, rather. But I think we really need to try, especially in times like this where, the currency factor is a big part. We need to still look at where we can get the majority of students, and that's what we're trying to do. So we're looking at LinkedIn as a very good means to target students. You can target them by industry. So if you have a particular program that is of, very popular in Egypt, plus very strong for you in your portfolio, you may want to look at LinkedIn as a means, and again, this is something that we could work on together to target students from a particular level of experience, so maybe 1 to 2 years of experience who are in the construction industry, for example, because we see that as an area of opportunity, and LinkedIn gives us the opportunity to target those kinds of students. Professional-focused websites. We're actually now working with an Egypt-based marketing agency who have experience in Egypt. So prior to that, we had a marketing agency here in Dubai that was handling the region. That agency is still working for us, but we've actually hired somebody in Egypt because we see the opportunity that that market has and how difficult it is to target it if you don't really know that market. So we've hired somebody locally there. We're happy to, if you have any ideas, you're thinking of programs that you want to promote, get in touch with us. We're happy to talk to that agency as well, see what we can do as a joint communication. Maybe LinkedIn is a great opportunity. Maybe some other websites are. We're looking at targeting professional associations. So, maybe the ACCA chapter in Cairo, for example, and trying to tap in there, see if there's any postgraduate opportunities, something like that. We're actually sponsoring a TEDx event at a school. So the sponsorship is through the school who are hosting this TEDx event, and they're actually having 15 guest speakers come in to talk about their experiences. Many of you may have heard of TEDx talks, which can be quite inspirational. And I think that's an area that, again, we could work on with you as a university partner. So if you're interested in those sorts of on-the-ground sponsorship of activities, I mean, for this particular activity, it's at a school that we're working with. We're sponsoring that activity. We get the full list of leads for students who are going to be attending that event, and it's a mix of undergraduate and postgraduate leads coming through. We get a chance to brand ourselves as IDP, but if we were working with you as a university, you could have a joint branding experience. It might be an opportunity for one of your current students from Egypt or alumni to come and share their experiences if it's a topic that's of value to TEDx. So again, a way to sort of engage with students. It's not the most expensive thing in the world, to be honest, and we could have a chat about that one-to-one if that's something you're interested in for future marketing opportunities. And alumni engagement. I'll actually probably touch upon alumni engagement in the last couple of slides that I have. We've also recently started Egypt-specific social media accounts, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram Egypt accounts. We found out from our Middle East accounts that our Egypt students or the Egypt users of social media are very active. They're very vocal. So we wanted to give them a space where they could really engage with content that is relevant to them. So we've started that Egypt-specific accounts. We encourage you to like those pages through your own social media in terms of your university or institution social media, and share any content that you think would be useful in the Middle East or Egypt. We're happy to share it on both our Middle East pages, but also our Egypt-specific pages. It's brand new, so we're looking for content. So please do share anything that you want to do. We're happy to do sort of Facebook Live webinars or Q&A sessions with you when you're in our Cairo office, so we can set that up. Do it. All we need is, we'll have one of our staff with a mobile phone, and that's all that's required to do a Facebook Live webinar, and it helps to get the word out there, increase brand awareness. So the last couple of slides are just sort of using LinkedIn to really gain, to engage with your alumni. So I know a lot of you will engage with your alumni through your, alumni associations or offices in your own in the institution that you work at. But I think LinkedIn is a great tool. I've just taken University of Nottingham as an example here. So for example, I did a search for alumni of Nottingham in Egypt, and it came up with about 199 results. And from that, it actually showed me, okay, where do they work? So what companies do they work at? What do they do? So in what industry are they in? Then what other information could I get? What do they study at university? And then obviously what are they skilled at and how I'm connected to them. But I think that those three factors I think are really interesting insights to try and get in touch or understand where your alumni are, what kind of industries they're in, so that you can start to engage with them, get them to come and participate in, if you're working with us on a presentation in our office, one-to-one sessions, on our roadshow, school activities. Having an alumni there who's actually experienced the institutions is second to none. So I think if you are already doing work with alumni in Egypt, great, continue that. But if you're not, I think using LinkedIn, this is a free tool that you can do. It takes 5 minutes to search, and it gives you that information about, where they work, what do they do, so what kind of industry are they in. So if we're targeting a particular program, you can try to find alumni related to that, and you actually get the details of the individual alumni as well. So who are they, what is their program? Message them on LinkedIn and say, okay, we're going to be in, maybe you start by doing a networking session to get them engaged, and then in the future use them for recruitment opportunities as well. So I would definitely encourage you to sort of use this tool. We try to encourage our university partners to use alumni as much as possible at our road shows, one-to-one sessions, mini fairs, because it does really help. We've seen that we get a lot of our business from referrals, so students who have used our services then referring other students to us. So it will definitely work the same way for the eventual institutions that they want to go to. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope that the insights were useful, the challenges and opportunities that come out of those challenges were useful, and how we can work together. That's just some of the information on our offices. So the two offices, one in Cairo, one in Alexandria. As I mentioned, Tamer is the main contact. His email ID is there. The phone numbers for the offices are there. But I'm still happy to act as your main point of contact or make the introductions to Tamer and the rest of the team in Egypt if required as well. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Johan. It's Donald from ICWS.
Hi, Donald.
Hi. Are you able to tell us what the exchange rate was pre-Brexit? I think that would be something worth highlighting.
It was so £1 was around 1 British. British pound was around 13 Egyptian pounds. And it went up to about 23 Egyptian pounds, if I'm not mistaken, and at the moment it's around 19.
It's gone from 13 to 19. Okay.
Yeah. I'll double check that.
Yeah, sure. So it's fair to say this is a pathway market in the sense that there's very much demand at foundation level? Yeah.
At the moment, definitely. I mean, we're seeing a lot of interest in, obviously, not just interest, but the students have to sort of go through a foundation because of the types of schools that they're in. There is a shift, though, so particularly at the British school level. So a lot of the British schools who were previously doing only IGCSE, doing, say, only AS levels, they're starting to now do full A levels as well, so a couple of them. But there's still a lot of the American schools. We get a lot of students from the two Shoifat schools, and if you've really counseled students from Shoifat, that system, has a lot of variation. So they either can go direct entry, but there are a lot of pathway students through them as well.
And typically, do Egyptian graduates need a pre-master's, or do the vast majority qualify for direct entry to a university for a master's?
Again, we haven't had too many master students. The ones that we've had have all gone direct entry, so it hasn't been a big pre-master's market. Generally, the Egyptian students are pretty good, so they do qualify. We haven't really also seen a lot of students who need English language before they start, as well.
All right, okay. Like that. Yeah. So, sorry, just come back to the fees then. So the message is it's more expensive now to study in the UK, but relatively speaking to US, etc., it's still cheaper in terms of the increased cost?
Exactly.
All right, okay. Okay. All right, thanks very much. That was pretty useful. I actually made a lot of notes. So as I say, I'm coming out there in a few weeks, so I'll be visiting the team. So that's helped inform the presentation. So thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Donald, for your question. If anybody else has any more questions, you can send them to me through the chat function. It's Naomi Eagling here, or you can unmute your line and ask the question, but it might be a bit of a nightmare. We've got about 20 people on the line, but if anybody else has got any more questions, we'll just hang fire for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, Chris Taylor here from the University of Birmingham.
Hi, Chris.
Just wondering, and it might be something you picked up on, but I did miss the slide. In terms of conversion for the next few months, looking at this cycle, is there anything you're doing in particular, or anything you really would encourage us to do? Because I think for us at the moment, applications are looking really strong, but we're really nervous that the conversion just won't be there like previous years.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I do think conversion will be a challenge this year, just because we're seeing students apply to even multiple destinations and not just multiple institutions within one destination. So that's definitely a factor. I think in terms of what we can do for conversion, obviously we have our roadshow coming up in April, so that's going to be a chance where we're going to invite a lot of the students who've already applied to come in. So that's one. I think we could definitely look at doing things around May, June in terms of pre-departure sessions, which would act as conversion tools. So I think that's an opportunity to work on with the office to say, okay, we have X number of applicants. Can we get them into a room and really, sell that concept of coming to my institution, for example? So I think that's something that we could look at working on as well. And I think from our perspective, what we're doing is, as I said, I've created a couple of documents, one highlighting different scholarship opportunities that may be available at foundation level, undergraduate, postgraduate, cost of living for different cities around the UK, as well as, cost of, or not cost, but how much you could earn from working. And we're planning sort of a webinar training session with the Egypt team on how to use those materials and those documents to really try and convert students as well. So I think there'll be students who've applied whose parents are thinking about the cost of education, so can we do some sort of a session for those parents, for those students to tell them that it's actually not that expensive, and especially if you're considering sending your student to, say, Australia or to Canada, for example. Here's why you should still consider the UK from a cost perspective.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
So, sorry, one other question, Johan. Is it fair to say it's a price-sensitive market ahead of ranking? So would the parents be more considering more rather the actual total cost as opposed to the ranking? A bit like Nigeria, I guess.
I mean, it's always been a rankings-focused market, so they have definitely focused on rankings. I think they still will, and that's one of the challenges or the things that we need to try and overcome when working on these sorts of conversion activities, whereby we say, okay, this is, yeah, you've come in and you said this is ranking, but you've also told me that this is your budget. So we have to sort of be a little bit, as agents, be a little bit strong and say, okay, you need to consider these other factors like subject-specific rankings, student survey results, testimonials, speak to an ambassador from that university and get that side of the story as well. Don't just consider, say, the overall ranking of the university.
Yeah. All right, sure.
Johan, it's Naomi here. We've had a question through on chat from Josie at Heriot Watt, who has said that, we've said that there's interest in other study destinations. Heriot Watt also, as you know, have campuses in Dubai and Malaysia, and she's just wondering what interest there is in Egypt for these destinations, if you have any insight.
That's actually a good question, and it is something that we are also looking at. So I think Dubai as a market is still not that cheap when you compare it to the UK as well, but we've definitely highlighted, in fact, overseas campuses, Heriot Watt's campus in Malaysia, as an option for students who really don't have the budget to go study in the UK. So we've already done that. We've put together a document which I've shared with the counselors in Egypt as well. So I think it's a viable option. Historically, we haven't had many students wanting to either come to Dubai or go to Malaysia, as the focus has been on the UK. But I think that's something that we'll probably offer to those students who may, completely disregard the UK as a destination because they just can't fit in the budget. And we've done the calculations. There is, savings to be had, particularly in Malaysia. So can we offer that as an option for students as well? And it would be good to get more insights on, because, again, we haven't sent a lot of students in the past to that particular campus from this region. So it may be worthwhile for the team there at Heriot Watt to maybe organize some sort of training with the Egypt team on the USPs of that campus. If they've had any students from Egypt or the region in the past, if we can have some testimonials, case studies, things like that. I think that would be very useful.
Thanks, Johan. That's great. I don't know if there's any more questions from the callers. There's a couple more through on chat from the UK team, actually, Johan.
Yep.
Ralph's asking if there's an opportunity around government scholarships for PG applicants. We're seeing an increase on 15-16 on funded PG students from Egypt.
Yeah, that's something, to be honest, I don't really have a lot of information on. I know that there are some scholarships available in Egypt, but I don't have that information. I'll have to probably talk to the team there and get that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's something that we can probably take offline with the UK team and yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any more questions from client universities or anybody else who's dialed in? Give it a couple of minutes. Okay. Well, I don't think there's any more questions from at this stage from the attendees of the call. Thank you very much for taking an hour out of your morning. Well, it's a lovely spring day morning here in Manchester, anyway. So thank you very much for all of your time. We will make the recording available to you, and we will try and host it on our client hub. And also send around to any colleagues that who might have missed it, who'd be interested. Please let us know if you have any further questions, either myself Naomi Eagling, or your allocated client relationship manager, or of course Johan is happy to help answer questions about Egypt or any other office in that region. Along with the recording, the slides will be accompanied, so they'll be in there for you. Okay, so if there's no more questions or comments, thank you very much for all of your time, and we shall speak to you all soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.